If you think the Resorts World scandal ended the day they paid $10.5 million, the real story is just getting started. Regulators say executive bonuses were tied to revenue, and compliance failures were ignored. The state complaint alleged an overall lack of control. Next, there was a CEO change. Then, new lawsuits and a push to ban the bookmaker at the center of the controversy. The fallout keeps growing, and every new headline reveals what they did not want you to notice. So what is still being hidden behind the Strip's newest towers? March 20th, 2025. The Review Journal headline lands. Resorts World Las Vegas could pay $10.5 million in settlement with gaming regulators. That number is not just a penalty. It is the second largest in Nevada history, and it is attached to a Strip property that was supposed to represent the future. The towers shine over the North End, a billion-dollar bet on luxury and high-roller traffic. But behind the glass, regulators found a different story. The Nevada Gaming Control Board's complaint, filed August 15, 2024, spelled it out. It was a 12-count document accusing Resorts World of letting illegal bookmakers and people with organized crime ties gamble millions, receive comps, and use casino credit. The complaint described an environment where red flags were not just missed, they were ignored, all in the name of revenue. Every detail in the public filings points to a property operating under intense pressure to perform. The timeline is clear. First, the complaint lands in 2024, shaking the Strip. Then, the $10.5 million settlement is announced in March 2025, with the Nevada Independent and the Review Journal both running front-page coverage. The fine is paid to the Nevada General Fund, but the damage is not just financial. Commissioners warn that the real cost is reputation, the kind of wound that lingers long after the headlines fade. Beyond the numbers, the scale matters. Resorts World opened in 2021 with Genting's global backing, betting on a new era for Las Vegas. Instead, the property's name now sits on a regulatory timeline, with each new receipt adding weight. The story is not about a single scandal. It is about a pattern. Regulators say put short-term profit ahead of the rules meant to protect the entire industry. On August 15, 2024, the Nevada Gaming Control Board filed a complaint that lays out the charge sheet in blunt terms. Regulators alleged, quote, "suspicious or illegal activity was negligently disregarded or willfully ignored for financial gain," end quote. That language frames everything that follows. The filing describes an environment where individuals with known ties to illegal bookmaking and organized crime were allowed to gamble millions, receive comps, and access casino credit, while red flags accumulated and oversight lagged. The complaint lists names, dates, and transactions to support those claims. At the center of the filing is a question of incentives. The document says executive bonuses at Resorts World were linked directly to financial performance. When revenue targets determine personal compensation, every VIP dollar takes on greater weight than routine compliance checks. Regulators summarize this as an overall lack of control. The complaint traces a cycle: pressure to deliver big numbers, a focus on high roller play, compliance taking a back seat, and warning signs being brushed aside as money flowed in. The filing names Matthew Bowyer as a key example. Federal records and the complaint show Bowyer moved at least $9.3 million through casino markers, and prosecutors documented his connections to illegal gambling. That level of money helps explain why regulators kept treating this as an active problem. The incentives graphic makes the point simply: revenue pressure, VIP focus, compliance risk, then fallout. If you want casino stories with receipts, not rumors, hit like and subscribe. Every detail in this segment comes from filings, settlements, and the documents casinos hope you will not read. The $10.5 million penalty was not just a check written to the state. The Nevada Gaming Commission order spelled out a series of binding requirements that go far beyond the headline number. Resorts World agreed to resolve a 10-count complaint, each count tied to failures laid out in the public stipulation. The property must now undergo an independent audit of its anti-money laundering program with a strict timetable. The audit must be completed within 2 years of the settlement date, and the results must be submitted directly to regulators. Mandated training is also part of the deal. Every employee with responsibilities for compliance, casino credit, or VIP services is required to complete enhanced training, and that training is recurring, not a one-time checklist. The settlement compels Resorts World to maintain detailed records of all high-value transactions and to improve its monitoring systems for suspicious activity. These are enforceable conditions tied to the continued operation of the casino. The agreement also reserves the state right to take further action if new violations or federal findings come to light. The fine itself is paid into the Nevada General Fund, but the operational changes are meant to last. For Resorts World, the cost is not just the $10.5 million outlay. It is an ongoing obligation to prove on paper and in practice that controls are in place, that markers and comps are tracked, and that compliance is no longer optional. The order leaves no room for shortcuts. With the ink barely dry, the pressure shifts to leadership to deliver on every line of the settlement. Commissioners didn't mince words when the settlement reached their table. Brian Krolicki called the $10.5 million penalty a clarion call for every operator on the Strip. He warned that the real lesson was not in the size of the check, but in the reputational risk that now clings to Resorts World. Rosa Solis Rainey said the fine was actually on the low side compared to the remediation costs the company faces, with millions already spent and more to come. George Marcantonis put it bluntly, "Resorts World will carry this wound to its brand for a long time." These are not stray remarks. They are warnings from the people who decide who gets to keep a license in Nevada. The Commission's order spells out why. When a casino puts financial targets ahead of compliance, it is not just about missing a few forms. It is about exposing the entire state to risk and putting the industry's reputation on the line. The Commission emphasized that this case should be a wake-up call for the Strip. Compliance is not a box to check after the fact. It is the foundation that keeps the doors open. For Resorts World, the settlement is just the start. The real challenge is proving day after day that the culture has changed, because in Nevada, reputation is currency, and once it is spent, there is no buying it back. December 2024. Alex Dixon was named Chief Executive Officer at Resorts World Las Vegas. Dixon is a gaming veteran with experience at MGM and at regional properties. The hire was an explicit move toward stability. December 2024. The company formed an advisory board as part of that stabilization effort. Jim Murren became board chair. G. Burnett joined the board. Michelle DeTondo and Tan Kong Han were also named. Those appointments were intended to signal credibility with regulators and investors. January 2025. Former Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval joined the advisory group, adding political weight to the lineup. His arrival was meant to strengthen the message that the company was trying to reset governance and public trust. What counsel told commissioners was that the property was now a different company than it was before, citing millions spent on upgrades and a leadership team with deep roots in gaming oversight. Even with those names in place, the central question remained: could new executives and board members fix the underlying problems, or were these moves primarily optics for a property still operating under revenue pressure and regulatory scrutiny? May 2025. Carlos Castro became chief executive at Resorts World Las Vegas, and he was also named president and chief financial officer. Local television reported the leadership change as a move to steady the property, just months after prior management shifts. December 2024. Resorts World named Alex Dixon chief executive and formed a new board as the company tried to stabilize amid troubles earlier that year. May 2025. The timing mattered. The $10.5 million settlement approved by the Nevada Gaming Commission was barely in the rearview mirror. Compliance upgrades were still underway, and regulators and industry watchers had the property under close scrutiny. This recent settlement made clear the state was watching. Why this matters now? For a casino facing regulatory fallout, leadership turnover becomes the lever that boards pull when pressure mounts. Combining the chief executive, president, and chief financial officer roles signaled a push for tighter financial oversight and faster cleanup. Frequent turnover, however, raises questions about stability, continuity, and whether deep problems are being solved or simply managed from quarter to quarter. The next chapter will test how much confidence Castro and his team can restore, and how much patience regulators, investors, and the public will extend. Matthew Bowyer's name appears in federal filings and state complaints for one reason: the scale of money that moved through Resorts World's doors. The Department of Justice says Bowyer and his associates funneled $9.3 million in illegal proceeds into the casino, mostly through marker payments, casino credit that is supposed to be tightly monitored. These were not isolated incidents. For nearly 2 years, federal records and Nevada Gaming Control Board complaints show Bowyer operating as a high-volume gambler, while filings flagged his ties to illegal bookmaking. State and federal agencies tracked those dollars. The aftermath went beyond fines and audits. In 2025, Nevada regulators added Bowyer to the state's Black Book, the official list of excluded persons reserved for those deemed too risky or damaging to the reputation of gaming in Nevada. Placement on the Black Book is permanent. Bowyer is now legally barred from entering any licensed casino in the state. Regulatory hearings in early 2025 made clear that the exclusion was more than a single punishment. Commissioners framed the Black Book move as a necessary aftershock to the settlement of $10.5 million approved by the Nevada Gaming Commission. State officials also said they reserved the right to reopen the case if new federal findings emerged, keeping ongoing pressure on Resorts World and its operators. The receipts keep adding up. The scale of the $9.3 million marker flow, the public Black Book exclusion, and continued regulator watchfulness show a fallout that is not finished. As headlines shift to civil claims and new compliance tests, Bowyer's name remains a reminder of what happens when profit pressure overrides controls. December 3, 2025. A new headline hits the docket. Robert Cipriani and James Russell filed a civil RICO lawsuit in federal court against Resorts World Las Vegas and Genting. The complaint runs hundreds of pages, and it alleges racketeering-style misconduct, claiming that Resorts World enabled criminal proceeds to flow through the casino, failed to report suspicious transactions, and retaliated against whistleblowers. These are allegations, not proven facts. The timing matters. The suit arrived less than a year after the Nevada Gaming Commission approved a settlement for $10.5 million tied to a 10-count complaint. December 3, 2025. The Review Journal headline framed the case as claims of a pattern, not just a single lapse. The suit cites the state's earlier findings as evidence of a culture where controls broke down and VIP dollars took priority. For the company, every new filing keeps the story alive. Each claim and every headline is a reminder to investors and regulators that the fallout is still unfolding. The company has pointed to millions spent on compliance upgrades and new leadership at the top, but the legal risk remains open-ended. There is no quick fix for a RICO claim in federal court. even if the property contests every allegation. December 1st, 2025. Resorts World New York City was named eligible to apply for a commercial casino license in the downstate market. That selection starts a suitability review. Regulators in New York will be reading the Nevada filings and the headlines from the RICO case before they decide. When a property is under scrutiny for compliance failures and ongoing litigation, the risks reach beyond fines. They threaten expansion plans and put every future license under the microscope. For Resorts World, the next chapter depends on proving to regulators in Nevada and New York that the lessons have been learned and the receipts are in order. Compliance failures aren't just a casino's private headache. They trigger fines, leadership upheaval, and lawsuits that keep headlines alive. With regulators still scrutinizing and Resorts World's parent expanding into New York, every unresolved issue multiplies the risk. The Strip's reputation hinges on who learns from this and who doubles down. In Las Vegas, fallout is not just history. It is the future you bet against. Share your take in the comments.